turn to your next blank page in your journal, put today's date at the top, put a complete title, which is lesson 3-4, subtracting mixed numbers with renaming. You might think of renaming as borrowing. We're going to follow our same steps as adding and subtracting mixed numbers, but we're going to have to borrow today. So let's look at question number 1. Number 1 says 5 minus 2 2/3. Now notice, there's not a fraction here for me to subtract from. The most common mistake that students make is they think, oh, there's nothing there, so I can bring 2/3 down. That is not correct. You have to have a placeholder here to see if I can subtract. Since my denominator is already 3, and I know I have to have a common denominator, I'm going to put a placeholder of 0/3 because 5 wholes is equivalent to 5 0/3. Now let's see if we can subtract. 0/3 minus 2/3. We cannot do that, so we have to borrow. So I'm going to borrow from the 5. The 5 becomes a 4. And notice I just borrowed 1 whole. So add your 1 whole in front of your 0/3. So now I have 1 0/3. Notice that did not help me any. So I have to find a way to use 1 0/3. To help me use that 1 0/3, I'm going to go around the world and change it into an improper fraction. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 0 is 3. So 1 0/3 is the same as 3/3. I'm going to slide my 2/3 over, and notice now I am able to subtract. 3/3 minus 2/3 is 1/3. Now I need to subtract my whole numbers. Remember to use the 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. My last step is to see if I can simplify. My numerator is 1, so I know that my fraction is in simplest form. So my answer is 2 1/3. Let's try another one together. Number 2, 7 minus 3 3/8. Notice there's not a fraction here for me to try to subtract from, so I'm going to have to add a placeholder. I already have a denominator of 8, so I want my common denominator to be 8. So I'm going to put 0/8. Now notice, I can't do 0/8 minus 3/8, so I have to borrow from the 7. When I borrow from the 7, it becomes a 6. I borrowed 1 whole. So now I have 1 0/8. It's not usable as a mixed number, so I'm going to change it into an improper fraction so that it will be useful to me. So 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 0 is 8. And denominator stays the same. So 1 0/8 is equal to 8/8. I'm going to slide my 3/8 over. Now I'm able to subtract. 8/8 minus 3/8 is 5/8. Now let's subtract our whole numbers. 6 minus 3 is 3. My last step is to see if I can simplify. Numerator's prime will not divide into denominator, so my answer is 3 5/8. Let's try another. Number 3, 4 3/8 minus 2 5/8. Notice that my denominators are already the same, so I don't have to find a common denominator. I have 3/8 minus 5/8. I cannot take 5/8 away from 3/8. The most common mistake people make is they put 2/8. That is not true. If I only have 3/8, I can't take away 5/8 because 5/8 is greater. So that means I'm going to have to borrow. I borrow from the 4. The 4 becomes a 3. And I just borrowed 1 whole. So put your 1 whole. Now, in order for 1 3/8 to be useful to me, I need to write it as an improper fraction. So I'm going to go around the world. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. So I have 11/8. I'm going to slide my 5/8 over. Now I'm finally able to subtract. 11/8 minus 5/8 is 6/8. Now let's subtract our whole numbers. 3 minus 2 is 1. Now I need to look at my fraction to see if it's in simplest form. I notice they're both even, so I can simplify by 2. When you simplify, don't forget to include your whole number. So 1 6/8 simplifies to 1 3/4. I know that 1 3/4 is in simplest form because my numerator and my denominator are 1 away. Number 4. 5 7/12 minus 3 11/12. Notice I already have a common denominator of 12, so now let's see if we can subtract. Can we do 7/12 minus 11/12? No, we cannot, so that means we have to borrow. We borrow from the 5. The 5 becomes a 4, and remember I borrowed 1 whole. So now I'm going to have to go around the world to make 1 7/12 into an improper fraction so it will be useful to me. So 12 times 1 is 12. 12 plus 7 is 19. So 1 7/12 is equal to 19/12. I'm going to slide my 11/12 over. Now I'm able to subtract. 9/12 minus 11/12 is 8/12. Now subtract our whole numbers. 4 minus 3 is 1. Next, I check to see if I can simplify. Well, I know that 4 divides into both 8 and 12. So I'm going to simplify by 4s. Don't forget your whole number. So 1 8/12 simplifies to 1 2/3. I know that 1 2/3 is in simplest form because my numerator and denominator are 1 away. Let me caution you quickly. Whenever you borrow, don't forget to mark out the whole number and write your new whole number. Please don't forget that step. Let's look at number 5. 25 says 23 1/6 minus 11 1/3. Notice this time my denominators are not the same, so that means I'm going to have to find a common denominator. So I'm going to count by 6s and count by 3s. I'm going to start with 3s. 3, 6. I can stop because they have a multiple in common. So my common denominator is 6. So now I need to find my equivalent fractions. 6 times 1 is 6. So 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 2 is 6. So 1 times 2 is 2. Now let's see if we can subtract. Can we do 1/6 minus 2/6? No, we cannot. So we're going to have to borrow. So I borrow from the 23. It becomes a 22. I borrowed 1 whole, so I'm going to put that 1 whole in front of my 1/6. Now, 1 and 1/6 still does not help me as a mixed number, so I'm going to change it into an improper fraction. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So 1 and 1/6 is equal to 7/6. I'm going to slide my 2/6 over. Now I can subtract. 7/6 minus 2/6 is 5/6. Don't forget your whole numbers. 22 minus 11 is 11. Next, I see if I can simplify. Well, I see that my numerator and denominator are 1 away, so I know that my answer is in simplest form. Let's look at number 6. A farmer gave 34 7/8 acres of land to the local historical society for a park. Previously, the farmer owned 177.5 acres of land. How much farmland does he have left? If I want to know how much he has left, we're going to have to subtract. So that's 177.5 minus 34 7/8. Notice that I do not have a common denominator yet, so I'm going to have to find a common denominator. Well, I know if I count by 2's, I will get to 8 because 2 times 4 is 8. So my common denominator is 8. Now we need to find our equivalent fractions. 2 times 4 is 8, so 1 times 4 is 4. 8 times 1 is 8, so 7 times 1 is 7. Now let's see if we can subtract. We can't do 4/8 minus 7/8, so we're going to have to borrow. So the 177 becomes a 176, and remember I borrowed 1 whole. 1 and 4/8 as a mixed number doesn't help me to subtract, so I need to turn it into an improper fraction. So 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. So 1 and 4/8 is equivalent to 12/8. I'm going to slide my 7/8 over. Now I can subtract. 12/8 minus 7/8 is 5/8. Don't forget your whole numbers. 7 minus 4 is 2. 7 minus 3 is 4. 1 minus nothing is 1. Next, I check to see if I can simplify. Well, I know that my numerator is prime and won't divide into denominator, so my answer is in simplest form. But it is a word problem, so don't forget to label. So the farmer has 142 5/8 acres left over. Let's try one more together. Number 7. Eve's family used 12 1/3 gallons of gasoline driving to an amusement park. They used 10 5/9 gallons driving home. How much more gasoline did they use driving to the park than driving home? My key words, how much more, tells me I'm going to have to subtract. I'm going to put the largest fraction on top. 12 1/3 is the largest. So 12 1/3 minus 10 5/9. The first thing that I notice is that I do not have a common denominator, so I know I'm going to have to find a common denominator. Well, I know if I count by 3's, I will get to 9 because 3 times 3 is 9, so that tells me my common denominator is 9. Now let's write our equivalent fractions. 3 times 3 is 9, so 1 times 3 is 3. 9 times 1 is 9, so 5 times 1 is 5. Now let's see if we can subtract. Can we do 3/9 minus 5/9? No, we cannot. so we're going to have to borrow. I borrow from the whole number 12. It becomes 11. I borrowed 1 whole. 1 3/9 as a mixed number does not help me, so I need to change it into an improper fraction. So 9 times 1 is 9. 9 plus 3 is 12. So 12/9 is equal to 1 3/9, and now I will be able to subtract. So I'm going to slide my 5/9 over. Now I can subtract. 12/9 minus 5/9 is 7/9. Don't forget your whole numbers. 11 minus 10 is 1. Next, check to see if I can simplify. Well, I know that 7/9 is in simplest form because the numerator is prime and won't divide into the denominator. Now it is a word problem, so I have to label. So it's 1 7/9 gallons of gasoline. Please press pause and write down any questions that you have for me in your journal, and I'll answer them as soon as you come to class tomorrow. Okay, turn to the next blank page in your journal. Fold your page or draw lines to have 4 equal boxes on your paper, and I would like you to work questions 1 through 4 of independent practice on your own and have them ready to check when you come to class tomorrow.